How many of us, when we were children, were taught that the world was a fair place? That if we had a problem, that we could go to an adult and they would sort it out for us? And how many of us were taught that if we work hard and believe in ourselves, that we could achieve anything we set our minds to? That if we believed in ourselves, that we could change the world? I was taught those things as a child, and I really believed them. And I grew up believing that where there was an injustice or an unfairness in our society, that we could go to a lawyer or a politician and they could make it right. And they would make it right. They wouldn't turn their backs on vulnerable members of our society and on children. And that's why I wanted to be a lawyer. And I can remember a teacher at school expressing surprise when I said I wanted to be a lawyer, because he said, if you're a caring and compassionate person, then maybe a career in law isn't for you. Maybe you should think about something like nursing or teaching. And this really surprised me, because what could be more compassionate and more caring than standing up for the rights of vulnerable people? People who might not even know they have rights, let alone how to enforce them. So I ignored the teacher's advice and I went to law school. And when I was there, I learned about groundbreaking cases brought by trailblazing lawyers that resulted in progress and equality and justice. And I felt so inspired and so positive, and I thought that I'd made the right choice. But then I went into the real world and I started working as a lawyer. And my eyes were opened to injustices that I had no idea existed in our society. I learned about systemic discrimination against lower socioeconomic groups. I learned about the impact and extent of domestic violence in our society. And I can't accept that. But it seemed that as a lawyer, part of your job was to accept it. It was to make the best job that you could for your client, but not necessarily to look at those issues that are impacting them and seek to challenge them. And I saw what my teacher meant. Lawyers are not always caring and compassionate, and sometimes it's more about making a profit than making a stand. But I still had that vision, a vision of playing a part in a more fair and just society, where the rights of our most vulnerable people are protected by those with the knowledge, willingness, and compassion. So I'm going to tell you a story. It begins about 5 or 6 years ago, and I decide to take some time out of private practice and go into citizens' advice. Citizens' advice are unsung heroes of our society, as far as I'm concerned. I am blown away by the passion and the dedication of the organisation and the lengths that they go to for the people that come through their doors. These are people that have fallen on hard times, whether that's through money problems, bereavement, illness, or disability. And Citizens Advice are there for them. And it's not about making a profit because they're a charity, and it's not about getting recognition because so much of what they do goes unnoticed and unreported. But it's when I'm here that I learn about a profound injustice, and one that I cannot accept. So, can I have a show of hands, please? So how many of us know a family where there's a couple and they're living together but they're not married? Okay, yeah, so most of us know a family like that, because cohabiting families are the fastest growing family type in the UK, and there's 3.3 million of them. Okay, so how many of us think that where there are children in those families, that those children are less deserving than children whose parents happen to be married, that they deserve less support than children whose parents are married, and that it's okay to turn them away for support when they need it just because their parents aren't married? No, I don't think so either, but our government does. Our government thinks that it's acceptable to turn these children away in the context of bereavement benefits. Now, you might not know what bereavement benefits are. If you don't, then you're lucky because you haven't needed to know. But bereavement benefits are basically the state's way of supporting a family when a parent has died. So it's money that the parent would have paid into the system by national insurance contributions, and they would have got that back in their pensions, but they've died. So instead that money goes to support their partner and their children, to support them at a time of bereavement. It sounds fair so far, except that our government think that it's acceptable to exclude these benefits from families where the parents haven't been married. Now, I wasn't aware that this restriction existed, and what I discovered tragically was that thousands of families and thousands of people don't realise this until it's too late. And that's thousands of people just like this woman, my client, Siobhan McLaughlin. So let me tell you about Siobhan. Siobhan is a loving, caring mum of 4 wonderful children, aged at the time between 11 and 18. Here's Siobhan with 3 of her children. One of them's camera shy, doesn't like to be in a picture, so here's her with 3 of her children. And up until now, Siobhan has devoted her time to being a full-time mother and carer of her partner, John. And Siobhan and John have been together for 2 decades, and John becomes ill with cancer, and sadly, he dies. And Siobhan is shocked to discover that when he dies, that her family are being turned down for benefits. And Siobhan asks, how dare the government treat my children as if they're worth any less? Now, Siobhan doesn't let this beat her. She goes out and she finds not 1 or 2, but 3 jobs to make ends meet. And this means that she can't be there with her kids in the evening to cook their meals and be with them. She has to be out at work, so she has to prepare a meal in the morning and they have to heat it up. So they've already lost their dad, and now they're losing their mum through having to work. And this restriction is putting families like Siobhan's, it's forcing them into poverty, into debt, and it's not acceptable. So Siobhan and I are inspired to change this and to challenge this, but we need to find someone else who's willing to take this on, because as I say, I'm a newly qualified solicitor at the time and I don't really know what I'm doing. So I need to find a more experienced lawyer. But everyone that I go to says no. They don't think that one woman from a small town in Northern Ireland can take on the UK government in this way. But thankfully, as luck would have it, or maybe it was fate, that I then speak to another lawyer, someone who tells me something different to what anyone else has said before. And unbeknown to me, she's already a trailblazer herself, and she becomes an inspiration to me and a friend to me. But she tells me, yes, let's do it. Let's make a stand. So we do it. We make a stand, and it takes us 4 years, but we take this case to the highest court in the UK, to the Supreme Court. And we win. And what the Supreme Court says is that the government is unlawfully discriminating against children and treating them in a way that is incompatible with their human rights. And they recognise that the impact of losing a parent is the same whether or not the parents are married, but that the way the government treats them is entirely different, and that's wrong, and it's unlawful. So it's a huge victory, and we are delighted because we know that this will impact not only Siobhan and her children, but thousands of children throughout the UK. And here we are, here's Siobhan, the woman who took on the government on behalf of her children and won, and she's here at the Supreme Court with a smile on her face. And here's Siobhan and Laura, who's the other lawyer that I talked about, and we are walking across the Westminster Bridge, going over to the Supreme Court to hear the judgment being delivered. Now, our work isn't done. We still have more to do. We are still knocking on doors to get the government to change this, because what the Supreme Court did is they said it was unlawful, but they then referred the matter to the government to rectify this, to write it into the statute books. And until they do that, then Siobhan and all those other families are not going to benefit from this. So we are still knocking on doors, and here we are knocking at the door in 10 Downing Street, asking for the government to take some action. So it's been quite a journey, as you can see, but what has it taught me? If I could talk to my childhood self, to that little girl who believed she could change the world, what would I say? And to my own children, now that I'm a mum myself, and anybody, young and old, who wants to make a difference. Is the world a fair place? I think it can be, if each and every one of us play a part in making it that way. All of us have a part to play. Don't leave it to lawyers and politicians and people that you think know more than you do, and people who think it's their jobs, because some of those people have no idea about the realities that are faced by so many of us. Are there adults who we can turn to make a stand against injustice? There are some, but not as many as there should be. And when we do find those people, then we should hold on to them. Because when we come together with people that inspire us, then it's amazing what we can achieve. Can we achieve anything we set our minds to? I think we can, if we work hard and we believe in ourselves and we never stop having compassion. Then I think we can do anything. I think we can make history. Don't let anyone tell you that compassion doesn't fit in with your profession or any aspect of your life, because I think today we need more compassion. I think sometimes that's what's missing from our society. And sometimes it feels impossible. Our society is broken. We've lost faith in our politicians. Our leaders don't inspire us, but we can inspire each other. Our leaders can't seem to come together to make progress, but we can, and we must, if we are to imagine a better society. And if you think it's impossible, or if people around you are telling you it's impossible, believe in yourself and know that you do have a part to play, no matter how small. And always remember the words of one of the world's most inspiring leaders. It always seems impossible until it's done. Thank you.